At gun ranges across America, something is changing. For decades, the firearms industry has pushed faster loading, higher capacity semi-automatic pistols as the gold standard. Younger shooters bought in, but America's fastest growing demographic just rejected that entire philosophy. In the past 18 months, revolver sales to seniors over 65 skyrocketed by 43%, while semi-automatic sales to the same group dropped by 28%. They're abandoning modern technology for something from the 1950s, something from the Old West. But here's the shocking part. Firearms instructors can't explain why this is happening, until now. To understand this phenomenon, we need to start with the basics. A revolver is mechanically simple. Pull the trigger and the cylinder rotates, bringing a fresh cartridge in line with the barrel. The spent case stays in the cylinder until you manually eject it. There are fewer moving parts, fewer things that can malfunction, and the operation is intuitive even for someone who hasn't handled the firearm in months. Semi-automatic pistols, by contrast, rely on a complex dance of springs, slides, and magazines. The energy from each shot cycles the action, ejecting the spent case and loading a fresh round. When everything works perfectly, a semi-automatic is faster and more efficient. But when something goes wrong, troubleshooting requires knowledge, dexterity, and often two strong hands. Dr. Patricia Hernandez, a geriatrician at Johns Hopkins Medical Center who has studied aging and fine motor skills, explains that the choice between revolvers and semi-automatics often comes down to physiology. As we age, our grip strength decreases, our fingers become less nimble, and complex manual tasks that once seemed simple can become frustrating challenges. At the Silver Eagle shooting range in Phoenix, Arizona, instructor Mike Torino has witnessed this shift firsthand. On any given morning, he teaches firearms safety to students ranging in age from 65 to 92. The parking lot outside the range tells the story. Luxury sedans and SUVs with handicap placards sit beside pickup trucks with veteran bumper stickers. Inside the facility, the sound of gunfire mingles with conversations about arthritis medications and grandchildren's college plans. Torino estimates that 80% of his senior students now choose revolvers for their personal defense firearms, a complete reversal from just 5 years ago. The reasons they give are remarkably consistent. They want something that will fire reliably without requiring them to remember complex loading procedures. They want something that won't jam if they haven't practiced in several weeks, and they want something they can operate even if their hands are shaking from medication side effects or normal aging. The trend is particularly pronounced among senior women, a demographic that represents the fastest-growing segment of new gun owners in America. At shooting ranges in retirement communities from Florida to Arizona, women in their 70s are discovering that the lighter weight and simpler operation of small-frame revolvers makes them more confident shooters than they would be with semi-automatic alternatives. Martha Stevens, age 74, recently purchased her first firearm after her husband passed away, and she found herself living alone for the first time in 50 years. At the gun store in Scottsdale, where she made her purchase, the salesperson initially steered her toward a compact 9mm pistol, citing its higher capacity and easier reloading. But after handling both options, Stevens chose a 5-shot revolver in .38 special caliber. Her reasoning was practical rather than emotional. The revolver fit her smaller hands better. She could operate the cylinder release and ejector rod without struggling. And most importantly, she could load and unload the firearm without complex steps that might be difficult to remember under stress. This preference for simplicity over capacity reflects a broader philosophical divide in the firearms community. Younger shooters, often influenced by military and law enforcement training, tend to prioritize magazine capacity and rapid reload capability. They practice tactical shooting scenarios and focus on engagement distances beyond typical civilian encounters. Senior citizens, by contrast, are primarily concerned with home defense scenarios. They're not planning to engage multiple attackers at extended distances. They want a firearm that will reliably stop a single threat at close range, ideally without requiring them to perform complex manipulations under the worst possible circumstances. The manufacturers have taken notice. Smith Wesson, the company that has produced revolvers for over 160 years, reports that their lightweight scandium frame revolvers are now their fastest-growing product category among buyers over age 60. These modern revolvers combine traditional operating principles with contemporary materials, resulting in firearms that weigh less than 15 ounces while maintaining the reliability that seniors value. Ruger, another major manufacturer, has seen similar trends with their LCR series of lightweight revolvers. These firearms feature polymer grips, titanium cylinders, and advanced metallurgy that would have been impossible when revolvers first gained popularity in the 19th century. The result is a firearm that looks traditional but incorporates decades of materials science advancement. The trend extends beyond just purchasing decisions. At gun ranges across the country, firearms instructors report that senior students learn revolver operation faster and retain the skills longer than with semi-automatic alternatives. The reason appears to be cognitive as well as physical. Dr. Robert Chen, a neurologist who specializes in age-related cognitive changes, explains that complex motor sequences become more difficult to retain as we age. Learning to operate a semi-automatic pistol requires mastering multiple steps: loading a magazine, inserting it correctly, working the slide to chamber a round, engaging and disengaging multiple safeties. Each step must be performed in the correct sequence, and forgetting any single step can result in a non-functional firearm. Revolver operation, by contrast, involves fewer discrete steps and relies more on gross motor skills than fine manipulation. Even someone experiencing early-stage cognitive decline can typically remember and execute the basic operation of loading cartridges into a cylinder and pulling a trigger. This cognitive advantage becomes even more pronounced under stress. Emergency situations that might require defensive firearm use are precisely the circumstances where complex manual procedures become most difficult to execute correctly. The adrenaline response that accompanies life-threatening encounters degrades fine motor control and can interfere with memory recall of detailed procedures. At the Tactical Defense Institute in Ohio, instructors have developed specialized training programs for senior citizens that focus on this stress response. Using simulated home invasion scenarios, they test how well students can operate their chosen firearms under pressure. The results consistently show that seniors perform better with revolvers than with semi-automatic pistols when facing simulated threats. The trend has also influenced holster and accessory manufacturers. Companies that specialize in concealed carry gear have developed new products specifically designed for the aging revolver market. These include holsters with magnetic retention systems that don't require fine motor manipulation and speed loaders designed for arthritic fingers. But the shift toward revolvers among seniors isn't just about physical limitations. Many older Americans have cultural and historical connections to revolver technology that influence their preferences. Veterans who served in conflicts before the widespread adoption of semi-automatic sidearms often have positive associations with revolver reliability. Police officers who carried revolvers during the 1970s and 80s remember them as dependable tools that never failed when needed most. This generational memory creates an interesting contrast with younger shooters who grew up in the semi-automatic era. For someone who learned to shoot with a Glock or similar pistol, the manual of arms seems natural and intuitive. For someone whose first exposure to handguns was through television westerns or military service with revolvers, semi-automatic operation can feel unnecessarily complicated. The divide is particularly evident at family shooting outings, where grandparents and grandchildren often prefer completely different types of firearms. At ranges that cater to multi-generational groups, it's common to see teenagers practicing with striker-fired pistols while their grandparents work with classic wheel guns at adjacent shooting positions. Industry analysts predict this trend will continue as the baby boom generation continues aging. The 65-plus demographic is the fastest-growing segment of the American population, and their firearms preferences are beginning to influence product development across the industry. Several major manufacturers have announced new revolver models specifically designed for the senior market, incorporating features like larger grip frames for arthritic hands and improved sight systems for aging eyes. The legal implications of this trend are also significant. In states that regulate magazine capacity, revolvers offer a compliance advantage that appeals to seniors who don't want to navigate complex firearms laws. A 5- or 6-shot revolver is legal everywhere in America, while high-capacity pistols face restrictions in numerous jurisdictions. Additionally, many seniors appreciate that revolvers leave no brass casings scattered around after shooting. At indoor ranges, this eliminates the need to bend over and collect empty cases, a task that can be difficult for people with mobility limitations. The training industry has adapted to serve this growing market. Firearms schools that once focused exclusively on tactical pistol courses now offer revolver-specific programs. These courses emphasize different skills than traditional pistol training. Instead of rapid magazine changes and malfunction clearances, students learn proper cylinder manipulation, effective use of speed loaders, and shooting techniques that maximize the accuracy potential of revolver platforms. Some training facilities have developed specialized courses that address the unique concerns of senior shooters. These programs cover topics like safely storing firearms in homes with visiting grandchildren, managing recoil with age-related joint problems, and adapting shooting techniques for common medications that affect hand steadiness. The psychological aspects of this trend are equally important. Many seniors report feeling more confident with revolvers because they can visually verify that the firearm is loaded or unloaded. With a semi-automatic pistol, determining the gun's condition requires checking multiple locations and understanding the relationship between the magazine, chamber, and various mechanical safeties. With a revolver, opening the cylinder provides immediate and complete information about the firearm's condition. This transparency appeals to seniors who may not trust their ability to remember whether they performed all the necessary safety checks on a more complex firearm. The trend has created interesting dynamics in gun stores across the country. Sales staff who once steered older customers toward lightweight polymer pistols now find themselves explaining the advantages of different revolver designs. The most popular models tend to be small-frame revolvers in moderate calibers, optimized for concealed carry rather than target shooting. Ammunition manufacturers have responded to this shift by developing new cartridge designs specifically optimized for short-barreled revolvers. These loads prioritize reliable expansion and penetration from 2-inch barrels, addressing the ballistic limitations that once made revolvers less effective for defensive use. The rise in senior revolver adoption has also influenced the used gun market. Classic revolvers from the 1970s and 80s, many of which had been considered obsolete just a few years ago, now command premium prices. Gun shows and auction sites report strong demand for well-maintained specimens from Smith Wesson, Ruger, and Colt. This renewed interest has created opportunities for specialized gunsmiths who focus on revolver restoration and customization. These craftsmen report increasing demand for services like action smoothing, sight upgrades, and ergonomic modifications that make vintage revolvers more suitable for senior users. The trend reflects broader changes in how Americans think about personal defense. The tactical shooting culture that dominated the firearms community for the past 2 decades emphasized speed, capacity, and complex skill sets derived from military and police training. But as the shooting community ages and diversifies, different priorities are emerging. Senior citizens are more likely to prioritize reliability over capacity, simplicity over speed, and comfort over tactical appearance. These preferences are driving innovation in revolver design and manufacturing, creating products that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. Modern revolvers incorporate materials and manufacturing techniques that make them lighter, stronger, and more durable than their predecessors. Titanium cylinders, scandium frames, and advanced metallurgy create firearms that offer traditional simplicity with contemporary performance. The sight systems on modern revolvers have also evolved to address the needs of aging eyes. Larger, more visible sights with high contrast markings help senior shooters achieve accurate hits without struggling to align tiny black-on-black sight pictures. Trigger systems have been refined to provide smooth, consistent operation that doesn't require excessive finger strength. These improvements make revolvers accessible to seniors who might struggle with the heavier, more complex trigger systems of previous generations. The holster industry has developed carrying systems specifically designed for the senior market. These products prioritize ease of use over speed, with features like magnetic retention, simplified belt attachment systems, and designs that work well with the clothing preferences of older Americans. As we look toward the future, this trend appears likely to accelerate. The baby boom generation represents the largest demographic cohort in American history, and their preferences will continue to influence firearms design and marketing for decades to come. Manufacturers who recognize and respond to these preferences are likely to capture a disproportionate share of what may become the most important market segment in the firearms industry. The implications extend beyond just product development. Training facilities, gun stores, and shooting ranges are all adapting their services to better serve senior customers. This includes everything from physical modifications like ramps and wider aisles to program changes like slower-paced instruction and age-appropriate scenarios. The cultural impact of this trend may be equally significant. For decades, revolvers have been portrayed as old-fashioned relics, symbols of a bygone era when gunfighters settled disputes in dusty Western towns. But as America's seniors demonstrate the continuing relevance of revolver technology, these perceptions are beginning to change. Young shooters who initially dismissed revolvers as obsolete are discovering that these firearms offer advantages in certain situations. The mechanical simplicity that appeals to seniors can also benefit anyone who values reliability over complexity, whether they're hiking in remote wilderness areas or living in urban environments where mechanical failure could have serious consequences. The revival of interest in revolvers has also sparked renewed appreciation for the craftsmanship and engineering that these firearms represent. Unlike mass-produced semi-automatic pistols that rely heavily on polymer components and simplified manufacturing, quality revolvers require precise metalworking and hand-fitting that connects modern shooters to traditional gun-making arts. This renaissance has created new opportunities for firearms education and cultural preservation. Gun museums and historical societies report increased interest in revolver history and development. Shooting competitions that were once considered niche events are attracting new participants who want to explore the capabilities of wheel gun technology. The trend also highlights broader questions about design philosophy in consumer products. In an era when manufacturers often emphasize features and complexity, the senior preference for revolver simplicity suggests that there may be untapped demand for products that prioritize ease of use over technical specifications. As America continues to age, the firearms industry will need to continue adapting to serve customers whose needs and preferences differ significantly from previous generations. The shift toward revolvers among seniors represents just the beginning of this demographic transformation. The success of this trend may also influence other industries that serve aging populations. The principles that make revolvers attractive to seniors, simplicity, reliability, and ease of use, could guide product development in fields ranging from home security systems to medical devices. Looking ahead, the challenge for manufacturers will be balancing the desires of different demographic groups while maintaining profitability in an increasingly competitive market. The seniors who are driving today's Revolver renaissance won't be the primary firearms market forever, but their influence on product development and industry culture may persist long after their purchasing power peaks. The story of seniors choosing revolvers over semi-automatic pistols ultimately reflects something larger about American society and the aging process. It demonstrates that technological advancement doesn't always align with user needs, and that sometimes the best solution is the one that prioritizes function over features. As shooting ranges across the country continue to welcome new senior students, and as gun stores adapt their inventory to meet changing demand, the Revolver's second act in American firearms culture appears to be just beginning. What seemed like outdated technology just a few years ago now represents a thoughtful response to the practical needs of America's fastest-growing demographic. The implications of this trend will likely extend far beyond the firearms industry, offering lessons about design, marketing, and the importance of understanding customer needs in an aging society.